So we talked about a lot of stuff, and where we stopped, I think, was the suggested routine. I don't know if we went through this one, but I think we did. But let me just start here, kind of as a recap. This is a good summary, anyways. For eating correctly, the goal is wherever you are, whatever if you have no routine on eating, if you just eat whenever you feel like it or something like that, just having a routine is highly recommended in yoga and Ayurveda, partially because the sun salutation and the moon salutation, they are really done before you eat in the morning, the sun salutation, and before you eat in the evening. So all of the yoga books, all the old yoga books say that you should have an empty stomach, 3 to 4 hours of no food before yoga, because there's twists, forward bends, they all put a little bit of pressure on the belly. So this is not ideal. Secondly, you work up a little bit of an appetite if you do a mild or intermediate or even rigorous yoga class. You work up an appetite. So you're supposed to have 3 to 4 hours between meals, and then you do yoga. You work up an appetite, and then you have a nutritious, large or medium meal. And I think that makes sense. So one problem is that I have a problem with I have a problem getting up early, but the idea is that you don't immediately eat after you get up. You drink water first, and then maybe tea or coffee, and maybe have a little bit of exercise, and then you have a large breakfast a couple hours after you get up. So if you have a structured day, maybe not your eating habits are structured, but maybe you have a fairly structured day. So if you want to sleep as long as possible before you go to work or something like that, then this is very difficult. So what I sometimes do is if I get up late, I do skip breakfast, and then basically my lunch is my breakfast. So I try to have a nutritious large lunch instead of the breakfast, because if I get up at 8:30, I have to rush to work at 9, and then I eat lunch at 12, then that lunch should be large and nutritious. So everything just gets moved back, but you shouldn't. In yogic therapy, it's recommended not to eat right after you get up. And then the meals get smaller over the day. So the next slide is really just a more detailed suggestion. This is repeating some of the stuff I just had in the more overview slide. So this is a suggestion for a routine. And at the end, I will repeat that this is kind of, you can cherry pick. So if some of this stuff seems completely impossible to do, that's fine. Because just like with mental health, the yoga therapy, just doing one thing out of 20 suggestions is better than 0. So there's no guilt involved, or there shouldn't be any guilt involved if you do one thing differently. That's that the glass is 1 out of 20 is 5% full, and so it's not a problem. Also, I've studied this for a long time, and in detail I do many of these things, but probably there's a great number of things here that I know about, but that I don't do. That's not really a problem. It's just any positive change is good, and probably helps you do more changes, but you shouldn't feel guilt when you don't do all the stuff. But this is the ideal day for a yogi. You get up very early, 6:30 or even earlier. You drink a large glass of warm water. I forget why they don't recommend ice cold water. It's not that important. Then you then you do something to work up your appetite. That doesn't have to be yoga. It could be a walk, or it could be something physical in the home to wake up the body, to get your metabolism going. And that can be extremely short. So for instance, when people age, the hips usually get stiff. So you don't move for 6, 7, 8 hours when you sleep. So a forward bend is a very minimalistic exercise. So you slide off your bed, your legs are off the bed. So if my chair is the edge of the bed, then your legs go like this. You try to straighten the legs and just lean forward. This is kind of a little bit of a hip stretch. So you can do that for several minutes. You can also take a break. You can inhale up, exhale back down, and you have spent a couple minutes or a few minutes just forward bending. So that kind of is good for the hips because those are usually kind of stiff after sleeping. Then you can do the opposite. So you can decrease the angle to the body from the legs. So you just sit straight and you squeeze your knee up. Also still sitting on the bed, this is one thing you can do on both sides. And then you can expand it from there, whatever is in the summer, if you have a garden, you can just go outside, pull some weeds or something. And then after your body and your mind are awake, you should eat a very large, healthy breakfast with everything that you like. So in yoga therapy in India, they recommend no meat, but like I said a few times already, there's no real proof that unprocessed meat is bad for you. So what did I write here? For instance, maybe that's on the next slide. Bacon is really just a slice of meat. I know that most manufacturers of meat inject the meat with salt water, but that's when you look at processed meat, there's a huge difference between a steak and bologna. They're both meat, but one is highly processed and one is not processed. When something is injected with salt water, technically it's processed, but it's just one very small step of processing or grinding. If the meat is ground up, it's technically processed, but if it's ground up very recently, I would, it's more closely to unprocessed meat, even if it's processed. But if the processing is just very short before you buy it, then it's closer to unprocessed meat, even though it went through one step of processing. It's a long way away from bologna. Bologna is the most extreme, the worst highly processed meat. So, for instance, there is a store in Iowa City called Fairway that has their own butcher. So, I would, if you try to get fresh meat, that might be a good place to get it. There's also, I think, a few other places, but meat that's highly processed that has a long is good for a long time. When something stays good for a long time, not frozen, there's something wrong with it that's not normal. So I would stay away from these things. But normally, yoga does recommend no meat. And what I have here is eggs, fruit salad, avocado toast, yogurt, milk, etc. Vary your breakfast according to your day. So if you feel like you can have some things that are always the same, but your breakfast should be the largest meal really, and it should be something you look forward to cooking once you get into this routine of waking up a little bit earlier, doing something, working up an appetite, waking up the mind and body, and then you cook yourself a nice large breakfast. If you're used to eating meat in your diet, if you eat some ready-made meals that have meat in them, like sausage links or something like that, just replace it with something else. Bacon, steak. I think many people eat ham, sliced ham for breakfast. Fumed meat or steamed meat or boiled meat is better than fried meat, but at breakfast that's the one time a day I would definitely include things that are maybe not so healthy, but that you want. Eat around 2 hours after getting up. We already said that. And then, so now if you have 3 to 4 hours until lunch, that's perfect. So you basically try not to put more food in, because like we discussed last time, the the ideal capacity of your stomach, your large intestine, little intestine, and everything from your mouth to the exit is works best if it's not overloaded. So when you have a large meal, then you shouldn't eat 3 to 4 hours. And also, if it's nutritious, your body will draw energy from this meal for a very long time. Probably, I mean, if you have a very large breakfast, you can almost skip lunch. You shouldn't skip lunch, but I'm just saying there's enough nutrition in a large breakfast that you should be fine. If you are not fine because you usually snack or something, then the first line of defense is just a couple large glasses of water, and that should be, I mean, you need more liquid than it is in the food, so that would be recommended anyways. But especially if you get hungry, just have another glass of water to make it to lunch. But lunch should be 12:30, I mean 3 or 4 hours after. At least include the nutritious side. So if you're used to an Iowa diet or Western European diet where there's always a piece of meat and a side, then you can include meat, avoid processed meat the same as before, but at least have a nutritious a vegetable side or a salad. Salad, soups, vegetarian chili is a good one. Then the last line of this last sentence here is not legible. If you work during the day, bring your lunch to work or supplement unhealthy choices with a healthy choice. So for instance, what I mean here is, let's say you work in a place where there's a kitchen, but you know that the usual choices are not healthy. So you can at least bring carrots or apple slices or any fruit or any side dish yourself, and then just order the burger without or whatever unhealthy choice there is with a healthy side. We just did that. Avoid cold sugar drinks at all costs. So we also talked about this a little bit last time. The problem is with extremely cold, very sugary drinks is that you don't even taste the sugar. It's kind of overriding your immediate perception that something is sweet and really very energy dense because it's so cold that you can't taste anything. So one way to deal with this is you just replace the sugar drink with sparkling water. You can add, if you add 1 large spoonful of sugar that dissolves quickly, like powdered sugar or something like that, and some kind of flavoring, you would still be a syrup, but then you don't need the sugar because the syrup has a lot of sugar. But you would beat Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Mountain Dew, whatever, by a lot. Because I don't have the number in my head, but I'm pretty sure a Coke is 3 or 4 or 5 scoops of sugar. So if you have a pint of a bubbly substance that doesn't have sugar, you can add 1 spoonful. It will taste sweet and basically just reduce the number of ice cubes instead of the glass half full or full with ice cubes. You can just use 3 or 4 ice cubes, so you still taste the sugar. It still hits the same spot. But ideally, in the long run, is best not to consume a lot of processed sugar. The sugar that you get from the food, the fruits and vegetables, doesn't seem to be, well, there's not that much sugar in it, but it also, if you eat a ripe mango or ripe papaya or ripe pear, you feel a lot of sweetness, but it's actually, this sugar is not bad for you. The sugar that's in the highly processed sugar is very bad. It, among many other problems, it causes inflammation, which is linked to a lot of diseases. So arthritis. If you have arthritis, the main thing, the main thing you can do to help your joints is to just eliminate sugar, the artificial sugar. You still get regular sugar from all kinds of fruits and vegetables. And I know that I have friends that work at Systems. This is a place where I think people who need some help living alone for mental reasons are, I'm told, basically addicted to sugar drinks. So that it's not, we are programmed through the last 100,000 years to recognize food that's not poisonous to us by it being sweet. So it hits something in the brain where we can't stop. So if you have a lot of information, you can of course stop things that seem nice to you because you realize they're not really that nice to you. But I was told this, the people that live with 3 or 4 people, they are a lot of people at Systems are halfway addicted to these sugar drinks, and when they get cut off, they get quite annoyed. So it's I guess the way I understand it is it's almost like smoking cigarettes, where the cigarette companies put additional chemicals in the cigarettes to make it more addictive. So the sugar itself is a slightly addictive substance. So I was drinking a lot of Coke and Pepsi and whatever. And 10 years ago, I started making my own kombucha. It's pretty weird if you have never done this, but it's incredibly inexpensive. So you can create, I think for 2 gallons, you use about 1.5 cups of sugar, which then gets digested by bacteria that are organized in something called a SCOBY. So when you buy, the problem with kombucha is it's healthy. It has a little bit of a vinegary aftertaste, but it's very bubbly. And the problem with it is if you buy a pint, it's more than a can of Coke, it's like $2 or $3. And that might, if you buy a sugar drink, it's, I don't know, 20, 30 cents if you buy a bunch of them at a time. So the problem is the healthy choices are 10 times as expensive as the unhealthy choices. However, if you make sweet tea at home with roughly 2 gallons of sweet tea with 1.5 cups of this of sugar. So you boil you make the sweet tea yourself, and then you let it cool down, and then you add the SCOBY, and 10 days later you have, I mean, there's a little bit more to it because you need glass bottles. But basically, if you have sweet tea and you put the SCOBY in, you have to have a breathable piece of cloth. But it's really just a half an hour of work every 8 or 9 days. If you don't like the vinegary flavor, you stop the process a little bit early. So there's a little bit of that sugar that's undigested by the bacteria. And if you like if you have a taste for kombucha, if you drink it for a while, then sometimes this little vinegary aftertaste becomes something you like. Then you let it brew for 11 days. And I calculated that costs almost nothing. Like if I buy a large box of black tea, which is what you need for this, that's like $3. The water is filtered water is in your home is basically close to, not free, but close to free. And then the SCOBY, I think on Amazon is $7. So, and the SCOBY doubles in size. So I keep throwing half my SCOBYs away. And in the winter I don't drink it as much, but in the summer it's very refreshing. It has bubbles. You don't have to spend a lot of money. But you do have to, I don't know, spend an hour, and you have to have a little bit of space for these glass things to sit in the dark. So if you have a choice, if you drink a lot of soda, these are the choices. I think soda is easier than kombucha. And kombucha also supposedly has health effects, but again, the soda where you put your sugar in or the kombucha are both a lot better than sugar drinks. All right, so we had lunch. So after lunch, the lunch should be smaller than the breakfast, and most people then it should also be smaller because you don't want to get tired in the middle of the day. So if your largest meal of the day is your lunch, then oftentimes an hour or two later, when your body is digesting all this food, you get tired. So when you have a little bit less big lunch, it's easier to go through the day without a nap. If you are retired, that doesn't really matter. You can take a nap. You should take a nap if you want to. But if you do get hungry after 3:30 or 5:30, a few hours after your lunch, then again, drink water, eat maybe a light snack, such as grapes, apple slices, any kind of fruit is fine. And then before you eat dinner, try to incorporate a light evening exercise or walk. Of course, yoga is what we call yoga, the poses, the flows, the stretching. So there's a evening routine. There's a sun salutation in the morning and the moon salutation in the evening, which is basically the same thing. And breathing exercises or a walk or something. Some physical activity to work up your appetite. Even if you're already a little bit hungry, just do something small, and then have dinner at 6:30. And then in the evening is maybe, so that's also a crucial time before bedtime, because food in your stomach is actually making you feel tired, and maybe it's just part of your routine. Eating just before bedtime is not ideal. Your sleep will be better if you sleep on a semi-empty stomach. So you shouldn't drink a lot or eat a lot within 2 hours of bedtime. So if you're helping your sleep with alcohol, just reduce it a little. If you're usually taking melatonin is a fairly innocent substance that your body produces itself. If you can reduce melatonin, if you have a 5 milligram melatonin gummy, the yogis always recommend slowly getting off something. So reduce it to 3. So of course, you're not going to fall asleep as easy if you're used to 5. The problem with any substance that helps you do something is your body is a highly adaptive machine. So we found that this is proven by some publications, that your melatonin production actually decreases if you take it for a long time. So if you take it occasionally, it does no problem at all. But if you take it on a regular basis, you're just substituting your own melatonin with the melatonin that you take. So again, this is a small thing, but reducing any help is better, so your body can go back to managing most of these problems itself. So alcohol is, so just drink less alcohol before bed if possible, enjoy beer and wine, and eating more liberally when there's an occasion. So if you have a visitor, or it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that, this is not a time to stick to your routine. Also, if you just meet a friend that you haven't seen in a while, all these recommendations are for a normal day. They're not really when something out of the ordinary happens. Doesn't mean you have to stick to your routine. And then, like I said at the very beginning, you can cherry pick changes. The changes that seem the most attractive, meaning the easiest or the most rewarding or the most fun to you, should be just 1 or 2 things that you can do. In yoga therapy, they actually don't go out and try to convince people that there's anything that they have to change. They are basically waiting for people to come. So in an ashram or in an Ayurvedic clinic, they don't really, they feel like the change has to come from you. So if you read all these things and you feel like, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong or something like this, this is not a good state of mind to do it. If you do change something, change a couple of things. And then the idea is that, and there's no, if we all did these things, we would all live like monks. That's probably not going to happen. But the idea is that your energy level is going to increase if you just change one thing. For instance, what I would, I think on the next slide, if you're not sure where to start, but let's say you drink Coke on a regular basis or Pepsi, that would be what I would think is the most important change, to cut out the sugar drinks. That alone changes a lot. So then the yogis think that if you change one thing, you have more energy and are more interested maybe in another change. So just changing small things, getting used to them, not rushing yourself, because sometimes the day of the change or the day of the second day of the change, you might feel very unsatisfied just from this one thing, and you might think, well, I'm just going to ditch this. So this is less likely if you do small changes and let them settle versus lots of changes. So also from Wednesday, dieting is not ideal. Many changes, you're always hungry. This is not sustainable. This allows you to make small changes, increase prana. Yes. Next one. So in terms of what we are talking about here is all nutrition and having a daily routine in terms of caloric intake. What people usually think of as yoga, people think that yoga is for weight management, or many people start yoga because they want to lose weight or something like that. It really is more of an indirect effect, where traditional yoga, you slow down, you become calmer, and maybe you don't have to snack so much. It's not yoga was never designed as a weight loss program, and many famous yogis in India are slightly overweight or normal weight. They're not watching their weight. But there is a lot of research that shows the more modern forms of yoga are very effective in reducing weight. These forms of yoga are not really recommended, especially not for middle-aged or older individuals, because there's a lot of risk for injury. So it's hot yoga. Hot yoga is, there's nothing terrible about hot yoga, but Iyengar, the guy that I follow, says you're in a hot room, 100 degrees or hotter, and you feel like there's a lot of things you can do in the hot room that you can't normally do. So people push themselves to the limit, which is another thing not to do. And then they come out of the hot room and they feel like they can still do the things that they were just doing in the hot room. So hot yoga is not recommended in yoga therapy, and power yoga is also a modern form of yoga that many Americans do. It's also not recommended. There's risk to injury. But when I looked at the evidence for weight loss, these forms have the most weight loss. So, I mean, for overall health, these are not recommended, but they have weight loss on the side, and it's maybe, but I mean, if you're 22 and fairly fit, other than being a little overweight, then these things are an option, but I wouldn't recommend them really, not even if you're 22. Also, jogging, I think, is something that many people do for being overweight, because your bone density doesn't adjust as quickly as your cardiovascular system or your muscular system. Your cardiovascular system and your muscular system is extremely adaptable to changes. So if you start to exercise, after only 2 weeks, you will notice that your shortness of breath is going away, maybe that your muscles are improving. You can run up 2 flights of stairs and not be out of breath, or feel your muscles, just because you started to exercise for 2 weeks. But the bone density and cartilage density takes much more time. So what you're doing is you are damaging your joints when you do this stuff too fast. So in a way, what you should do is, if you really want to go jogging, is to walk your weight off. Walk maybe first slower, then more rigorous, and then maybe after 5-6 months, then through all the walking, your body is adjusted to basic rigorous walking. Then the running is not going to have a bad impact on the knees. Of course, in yoga you don't really have that problem. Do you have people with knee problems because people don't protect the knee when they do stretches? So, for instance, when you do triangle pose, can you see this? Yes. Well, so triangle pose is like this. So you're leaning into this leg, and this knee can be relaxed or active. So you activate this leg, and you draw the kneecap up. Now your knee is protected. But when it's totally relaxed and you go fully into triangle, and let's say you do yoga once a day or a lot of yoga, your knee keeps getting pushed in the wrong way. And it's not a big problem if you do this one time a month, but if you do this daily, there is some yoga grades that walk on a cane, because who knows, but one Iyengar thinks that this is because the knee was not protected in the pose. So it's important to activate the joint that you're leaning into, because when all the muscles around the joint are basically pulling it together, it's a lot more stable. When it's relaxed, you kind of keep pushing it in a wrong way. So yoga is not a totally safe form of exercise. I think walking is the safest, but yoga is not far behind. If you protect the joints, mostly the knees, the lower back, the wrists are yoga injury prone. If you protect those correctly, then the knees, the joints should be safer in yoga than in jogging for sure, easily safer than jogging. Then there's one problem with weight. I don't know what this is highlighted. For most people in America or in Europe, we are basically in middle age and let's say up to 70, 75. Most people struggle to keep their weight down, but then when you get into the 90s, when you get into an advanced age, there's the weight problem is the other way around. It's that people lose weight and have trouble maintaining their weight, so they become underweight. So in Japan, where most centenarians live, I think it's Japan, Italy, France, they have super high life expectancy. Japan, much more so than Italy, but so the problem is not really losing weight. The problem is maintaining the same weight. So I think in Japan, because there's so many centenarians or people in the late 90s, constipation is actually a fairly common problem. So it's really caused by the digestive tract partially not working anymore, and partially because everything goes through so slow, it ends up being more dry due to the inactive large intestine. What's really bad for Japan is also a country where people eat a lot of processed rice, is any kind of processed flour or rice or fiber reduced food. So old people, well, advanced age, the goal would be to reduce these dense foods, just like it is for any age, but the consequences are more serious if you're in that age group. So the solution is more fiber, or fiber that dissolves more easily. And then I think I also mentioned some of this last time, any kind of fermented food, miso, sauerkraut, kombucha, water. I think some people recommend olive oil to relieve the constipation. So if you drink oil, the constipation can go away. And there's a few other examples: avocado, okra, fermented food, kimchi, papaya, white radish, and yogurt and honey. These are all recommendations for to deal with constipation. And then managing your weight in terms of keeping your weight. Yeah. I mean, in general, I think it's fair to say that in yoga therapy and generally in Eastern traditions, the staying alive as long as possible is kind of secondary. It's more like having a high quality of life while you are alive. So when your digestive tract doesn't work as good as it used to at 95, this is kind of something that yoga therapy isn't too concerned with, because in the West we want to save everybody, which leads to, for instance, I think roughly a third or half the medical expenses that are spent on you on a person in the United States on average is in the last year of life. So when you, like, let's say you die at 93, so between 92 and 93 is when half the money that our medical system will spend on you is spent, which is, I mean, it's a question of priorities, but I guess I wouldn't mind if more was spent earlier. But when I'm 92, maybe I'll look at this differently. But yeah, anyways. This is, I think, my last slide. So it was a little too much for one class. I think, do you have any questions? Comments, suggestions? So the next class is normal. It's going to be on incontinence, fecal and urinary incontinence. There's a yoga. There's the chakras, the energy point, and the Kegels. There's Kegels basically part of traditional yoga. So there's some things that can be done with yoga poses, with weight management. It's kind of removed a little bit from what we think of as yoga, but like I said, yoga is more than the poses. So we'll talk about this specific issue on Monday. All right.
Thanks, Christoph.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. And see you soon. So I recorded this. I mean, you were here, but I don't know how. So we'll see what happens. But if there's a topic in the future, if this works, then I will mention it in the next classes, so that if there's something that you're interested in that you don't have time to listen to, then we will try to find a way to make this available. All right. Otherwise, have a good weekend, and see you on Monday.